All right, so guys, it is the first preview of the year. I'm excited, obviously. I wouldn't be. Fishing is the best. That's why I do it. But Lake Norman, the weather's going to be okay. I mean, it's going to be about 50 degrees, a little bit of wind. Early morning temperatures are what are really going to suck because it's going to be cold. The boat ride's probably going to be a little chilly because I'm an idiot and I don't have any winter gear, but it's fine. I'll make it. I've done it before. Been through worse, honestly, significantly worse. So I'll be fine. But yeah, so Lake Norman, I'm not sure exactly what to expect. Last year was difficult. It was really hard. Fishing was difficult. The water was very cold, and yeah, conditions were very poor. This year, I think it'll be a little bit better. If nothing else, the weather is going to be consistent. It was basically the same way today, which is Thursday, as it's going to be tournament day, and it's going to be about the same tomorrow and Sunday. So for the next 4 days, it's going to be the same, about the same temperature, nighttime temperature, daytime temperature, sunny all those days, a little bit of wind. So the fish should at least be consistent, whatever they're doing. So if boaters are practicing today and tomorrow, they'll at least have some idea of what to expect. Which is kind of tricky because the old trope goes during a tournament, if you've practiced before the tournament, there's a cold front during the tournament. So you can never tell what exactly is going to work because basically your whole plan goes out the window come tournament day. That shouldn't be the case if you practiced a couple days before the event, but I digress. I've got a pretty good idea of what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna try just some standard stuff that's good for cold water fish. You got the shaky head. This is I believe it's I want to say it's quarter of an ounce or 3/16 of an ounce. One of the two. Might be 3/16. But yeah, it's just on. That's got a little trick worm on that. I'm gonna do some crankbaiting with a Spro Rock Crawler 50, about a 4 to 8 foot diver, nice and small. Good for spotted bass, good for largemouth bass. I will take the time and show you the difference between the two because that is probably the big X factor for this tournament. And it is every time you go to Lake Norman, you have the smaller population of bigger fish, which are the largemouth bass, and then you have the large population of smaller fish, which is the spotted bass. So, yeah. So basically, if you are a boater, what you're trying to do during this event is you're trying to find a way to pick off the big largemouths. That's really hard to do on Lake Norman. It's not because they're not there. It's because of how many other small fish and how much area you have to cover that all looks basically exactly the same. And again, I'll get into that in just a little bit. But basically, for me as a co-angler, I need one good sized fish and some smaller ones to go with it. If I do that, I will make a check. I can almost guarantee you. If I caught a limit, I can basically guarantee it, even if I didn't catch a big fish. But assuming I don't catch a limit, given the fact that I've fished 15 events and haven't caught a limit yet, I need a big fish. So something at least 2.5, 3 pounds. And there's 7 pound bass in there for sure. So if the Lord could give me one of them, that would be amazing. I would be thrilled with that. It'd be a great way to start the year off. I zeroed this event last year, so if I catch one fish, I'm doing better than I did to start last year. So that is something to keep in mind. But yeah, other stuff I might use, a little swim bait. It's a good spotted bass. It's good spotted bass candy. They like a little swim bait. But yeah, I'll use that. I'll use a Ned rig, probably a little bit of a jig, just standard cold water stuff. I'm going to try to keep it simple. I'm definitely better at cold water fishing than I used to be. So I think I'll do better. I think it'll be a better event than last year for sure. I don't know. I hesitate about making predictions, but again, it's kind of fun to make predictions. We like to bet on stuff. It's just the way people are. So I'm going to say my prediction for winning boater weight is going to be between 16 and a half and 18 and a half pounds. So it's going to be high-ish, but not that high. The first event I fished on Norman ever, the winning weight was 22 pounds, which is an insane number for Norman. I mean, again, like I say, it's so hard to track down even one of these big fish sometimes, that catching 5 of them to make a 22-pound limit on Norman, it's very difficult. Doesn't happen very often. So Again, I think it'll be in the high teens for a boater. For the co-angler side, I want to say it'll be about 11 or 12 pounds. If it's higher than that, I would be surprised. Um, so kind of gives you an impression of what I would need to maybe win would be like two good ones and a couple small ones, or a limit of like 2.5 pound fish. Um, which is, again, it's possible. There's a lot of 2 pound fish in Norman, especially this time of year where they're all fat and they haven't spawned and they're not stressed out from the hot weather and all the boaters and stuff. But um, so that's my prediction. Um, I think what we would need to qualify this as a success, even though, like I said, one fish would be better than what I got last year. I think we're going to say more than 4 pounds of fish. So if I catch two small ones or one big one, I think we can quantify that as a success, even if I don't come back with a check, because that's points that are going to have me in the regional championship at the end of the year for this division if I keep doing that consistently. So that is my plan. If you want to watch the event, feel free to go to FLW.com, FLW Fishing, and the weigh-in will probably be about 3:30. I will send out when my flight will be in, so you have some idea of when I will weigh in, and you can watch that live, like I say, if you want to. So feel free to jump over there on Saturday. I will be hopefully weighing in a lot of fish and holding up a trophy and walking away with money. But at the same time, I do it because I love the sport. I do it because I love catching fish, guys. That's why I do it. So, anyway. Yeah, but I don't know. It'd be really cool if I could catch some on the crankbait, though, because I am not a crankbait guy. And, well, let's just say that learning new stuff is something I love doing. And it really is cool when you can take something that you're not good at and you can turn it into a strength. So I've been working with, like, say, the shaky head, which is something that everyone down here swears by. And I've been fishing a lot with it. I caught like a 3.5 pounder on Sunday on it at a lake here near where I live in Raleigh. And yeah, so it's one of those things where it's turning into something that I'm comfortable fishing and might even be a strength in a couple months. Who knows? So yeah, hopefully we can put together a good event. I'm going to show you what Lake Norman looks like right about now. Okay, so tournaments on Lake Norman. Trying to give you a little bit of an idea of what the lake looks like. This is Lake Norman. You can see there's 77 coming down. Charlotte is down here, that big 485 going around Charlotte. That is Charlotte. But Lake Norman's a big lake. I want to say it's in the 80,000 acre range. Takeoff will be from up here, right there at Pinnacle access point and boat ramp. So you can see it's kind of north in terms of where it's at on the lake. You can see all this lower end of the lake, a lot of it, there's a power plant down here, so it's a lot warmer than the rest of the lake. So even if the water's a little bit chilly in the lake, there should still be some water at least that's warmer, although I don't think you'll need to go down there to catch fish. I think there'll be fish biting all across the lake. But just to give you an idea of what the lake looks like in terms of what you have to fish, it's basically a very typical Florida, sorry, North Carolina, Georgia, kind of red clay, deeper, cooler water reservoir, but it has an insane amount of housing along the banks. So one of the primary things you fish all day are docks, and you can just see just by looking at this here that there are docks all in this lake. I mean, you can see you can pull into a cut and you can fish 30 docks easily. It wouldn't even be hard. So that's the challenge of Lake Norman, is not only are you trying to find the larger caliber of fish, especially those largemouth bass, but you're also trying to find out where they're going to be. And when you have, I mean, you can see, just look at these cuts. Every one of these things has, minimum of, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 per cut. And that thing's tiny. You can see a boat there. That thing's not even big. So you have all this structure that is all pretty much the same. Some of them are floating, but most of them have pillars, so they're all very good bass habitat in terms of they have nice shade, they have good structure that the bass can kind of orient around. So that is really, I think, the hardest part about being a boater and trying to figure out where the big fish are, is trying to figure out which docks are actually going to have those big fish, because it all looks the same. It really all does. So you have to really figure out, like, you're so you have to figure out location in proximity to like deeper water or maybe some current or something special. You have to find something special. So like docks that are located like right off of deeper water, like if there was a channel swing right about here, and it went from like, say, out to about 10 foot here and then dropped off into 40, this dock right here that would probably be a killer, especially if the wind was blowing that direction. That dock would probably have fish on it most of the year. Maybe not during the mid-spring, early summer period, but as soon as the water gets real cold or real warm, I would think the fish would be around that dock. Now that's this particular dock. I'm not even saying that dock specifically. I'm just saying a dock that's like that would be something that you'd want to look for on a lake like Lake Norman. But yeah, it's a tough place to fish. You can see, just look at how it's a complicated, busy body of water. It is a big, complicated, busy body of water. You can see it just goes all over the place. There's islands, there's shoals. It is a big, daunting lake to fish, especially when you realize that there's just not that many big fish that are easy to catch. Like there's a decent amount of them even, but they are not just laying there waiting for you to catch them like they are in, say, like Jordan sometimes. Norman, they're few and far between, and you got to move around to catch them. So I'm going to move on from that. I'm going to focus a little bit on the differences between largemouth and spotted bass, because that, as I said, is a big key with Lake Norman because of how many spotted bass there are. So this is a spotted bass, as you can see, and I think the couple of primary differences you can look for: one, they usually have red eyes, so that's a big telling factor. You're not gonna catch a largemouth with bright red eyes. Smallmouth and spotted bass both have that phenomenon. I'm not sure why. Also, you can see this upper mandible on the jaw. On a spotted bass, it's not going to extend out behind its eye. It's going to stay underneath its eye. It's not going to come out behind it. Whereas with the largemouth bass, it comes out significantly past its eye, which this just means that the spotted bass end up having a little bit smaller mouths. But you can see also the largemouth, he's got this divot right here up on his dorsal fin above his back, and that's a very deep divot on the largemouth, and it's not quite as pronounced in the spotted bass. You can see it definitely goes down, but it's not quite as far close to his body as is with the largemouth. And then just generally marking-wise, there's almost always a really dark stripe on the spotted bass, even in the summer when typically the largemouth start becoming a little bit more uniform green color, even though they technically have the same kind of stripe. You don't notice it as much in the largemouth. It's almost always pretty strong in the spotted bass, unless it's like real muddy water or something, and they've got real, white bodies because of how, murky the water is. But yeah, so those are some of the primary differences. Spotted bass usually don't get as big. I mean, there's, seeing someone catch a 6-pound largemouth out of Norman, that would be cool, but it's not that unheard of. There's a decent amount of large bass in Norman, whereas spotted bass, I mean, if you saw someone catch a 4, that's a darn good spotted bass out of Lake Norman. That's a big, big spotted bass. So there's definitely a size discrepancy. It's not to say you couldn't catch, a big spotted bass there, but I would definitely think that if you want to win the event as a boater, you need 5 big largemouth bass to really have a shot. So that's just a quick overview of what the spotted bass versus largemouth bass, what those differences are, and hopefully that was helpful.